brain is not working as well as it should. All right. Looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone, to the May 17, 2023 Plastow Planning Board meeting. And with that, we will start with the roll call.
Yep. Tom Alberti.
Here.
Karen Robinson is excused.
She's excused, yes.
Yep. Lori Millette.
Here.
Chuck Fowler.
Here.
Richard Anthony.
Here.
Tim Moore.
Here.
Bill Coy.
Here.
Victoria Healy.
Here.
All right. With that, we will do a minutes review for our May 3rd, 2023 meeting minutes. Any questions on adjustments, anything?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from May 3rd, 2023.
Bill makes a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Chuck seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Tim was an active member. Will Tim vote on those minutes from last meeting, or do I have to?
I don't think so.
All right.
No.
So 4-0-0. Okay.
Well, I mean, Richard can vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
Haven't appointed him yet.
You have to
appoint him as a voting
Richard
member.
to vote tonight.
Yes. But
If
for
that
that
was
one,
your
are we good?
intent.
Or do we need to appoint him? All right.
If-
All right. I will appoint, with Karen's absence, I will appoint Richard Anthony as a voting member this evening. Should we re-vote on the minutes?
4-0-0 is a landslide, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
We're good. We're
I
good.
think it's okay.
Yeah, I agree. All right, with that, we'll move to the public hearings. First off, we have a continuation of PB 23-03. The board has received a request to withdraw this application. There is no requirement or no procedural requirement to open the public hearing, so effectively, it's recommended that we simply put a motion forth to withdraw the application.
Yep. I'll move to accept the withdrawal request for the amended site plan application for 27 Garden Road without prejudice.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Richard seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. Okay. That means that 23 dash is PB 23-04 is happy because they didn't have to sit around. They go to the top of the list. It's like the deli counter, right? When they have the number in front of you and nobody comes up, it's always a good thing. All right, PB 23-04, the completeness of an application from Richard Thomas, RFJ Motors, that proposes a change of use from a fleet maintenance garage to motor vehicle sales. Property is located at 78 Plastow Road, tax map 27, lot 16 in the C1 zoning district. The property owner of record is Pest End Inc. If the application is found to be complete, the planning board may immediately conduct a public hearing. With that, we will take a peek.
Do we have the video display tonight?
If you touch the laptop, the plan should already be up on the screen.
Before Charlie starts discussing the application, do we want to vote on the completeness? Or should we let Charlie chat a little bit about it? What do you think is appropriate, Tim?
Completeness.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
It's really bored, but looks like you're getting there.
You can
Just,
scroll.
yeah, through that.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. There we go.
All right. I don't see any significant issues with the application. Someone want to make a motion to accept the application's completeness?
Yeah, I move to accept the application PB number 23-04 for an amended site plan, 78 Plastow Road, tax map 27, lot 16, that proposes a change of use from a fleet maintenance garage to motor vehicle sales is complete.
Of course.
I second the motion.
Richard seconds the motion. Bill makes the motion. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0. And, all right, with that, Charlie, you good?
I believe we have a plan up on the screen,
Excellent.
so we're good.
Please introduce yourself and
Sure.
anything else, and then,
Charlie Zilch from SCC and Associates for the record. Here on the behalf of the applicant, which is Richard Thomas of RFJ Motors, as well as the owner of the property, Pest End Inc., owned by Andy Karachi. And this is for the amended site plan application at 78 Plastow Road. I expected Richard to be here with me tonight, so maybe he'll be here in a few minutes. I told him there was one application on before us and that I would get here for 6:30, so I would expect him to be joining with us. So if you have any questions for him, hopefully he'll be here shortly. So just kind of give you a run through what the property is. Perhaps if you would turn your attention to sheet 2. So the property is a 0.69 acre lot of record with approximately 136 feet of frontage on the west side of Plastow Road, Route 125, and approximately 200 feet of frontage on the north side of East Road. So corner lot on East Road and Route 125. The lot itself is entirely within the commercial 1 zone, and it's abutted by the low density residential zone on the west side. So the property is entirely within that C1 zone, as well as the other properties to the north, east, and south of it. Only one residential zone on the west side. And pretty much, if everybody's familiar with the area, like I said, it's a commercial zone on the north, east, and south side, and there's commercial properties established all the way around this thing. The only residential house is the one on that residential side on the west of the property. So pretty much commercial all the way around this thing. Situated on the lot, you'll see there's an existing 1,815 square foot, 1-story commercial building. It's a brick on slab building. It's constructed in perhaps about the 1970s, and it's always served as an automotive garage and still pretty much currently configured for such service. There are 2 garage bay doors on the south side and 1 single garage bay door on the north side of the service area. Service area allows for about 2 bay vehicle service, with one side allowing for drive-through service, including an automotive lift. 2 small office areas are located on either side of the building, both on the east and the west side, and an existing on-site septic system and current municipal water serves the existing building. So around that building, you'll see there's a generous paved parking area surrounds it, and entry onto the site is available from both Plastow Road. There's a right-in and right-out only entrance, and then on East Road, you have 2-way access off the north side of East Road. Additionally, there's a large area of gravel parking at the western edge of the paved parking that terminates at the top of a slope well above a wetland located on the northeast corner of the lot. And I might want to direct your attention to sheet 3 that has the topography on it. And you can see where that wetland complex is in the northwest corner. And you can see that the parking area is probably about 8 to 10 feet above that. You can see the slope behind the parking area. The lot's also subject to an easement to abutting lot 2717, which is the lot just to the north of it. That was also, or still currently owned by Pest End Inc. That was to allow for access from East Road through the site to that particular lot. That'll be terminated upon sale of the lot from Pest End to RFJ Motors. So there'll be no need for it anymore. We'll extinguish that. I don't show it on the plan. I just mention it in one of the notes, but there is an easement there that was approved on the previous site plan. So currently, Pest End Inc. is in transition. It's moving its business from this site elsewhere. As approved by site plan in 2018, Pest End utilized this site for automotive fleet maintenance in support of the office next door at 80 Plastow Road, which is the lot I just mentioned. The approval at that time effectively ended the automotive sales use of this lot that had been allowed as a grandfather use for several decades. You may remember that some of the dealerships just prior to Pest End's ownership included the Megastore, sales operated by Mr. Waters, then there was Levitt operated by Mr. Levitt. These dealerships and others that preceded them were allowed to operate, as I said, as the use was well established. They were grandfathered uses. So there's always been an automotive dealership here for decades prior to Pest End occupying the site. So, so they were allowed to operate. The town's Plastow zoning ordinance, Article 3, Section 22016B, limits similar uses by maintaining a 1,000-foot setback between business dealerships. In this particular case, there's 3 dealerships operating within that setback. And so in order for a vehicular dealership to be proposed at the site, a variance is required. That variance was granted just the other month, allowing this proposal to move forward. So to wrap that up, like I said, when Pest End moved in, they changed the use of the site. We lost the grandfathered use of the vehicle dealership. We went back to the zoning board, Mr. Thomas and myself, and we were able to obtain that variance to operate a vehicular dealership here now. Why don't you come on up and have a seat? Okay, Mr. Thomas is here with me, and should you have any questions about his business or what his intentions are, he'll gladly answer any questions.
Got it.
But if I'd like to proceed just a little bit more. Okay, so with the lot now available, and considering its historic use, Richards is proposing to establish his business at the site, as I mentioned. Richard's business, RFJ Motors, as the name implies, is an automotive sales business. Specifically, Richard specializes in the sales of specialty trucks. The types of trucks offered are mainly customized diesel, off-road, light commercial, and utility trucks. Most of the business is marketed to private sales with some commercial as well. Richard seeks trucks that he'll be able to bring into the existing service area and modify with add-on accessories such as tuning, lifts, wheel packages, and the like. Once modified, the vehicle will be shown on site and offered for sale. His hope is to maintain 30-plus vehicles at any one time. He will do some online sales as well. In addition to the vehicle sales, he'd like to supplement the auto sales with ATV sales as necessary. And also to maintain a full-time technician, Rich would also like to offer state inspections by appointment only. So there will be no fleet oil changes, auto body or paint services, or large-scale tear down and rebuild within the site. And all Mr. Thomas will employ about 3 employees at this site. So he's looking to just keep a mechanic busy full-time, and he's able to supplement that if he could do inspections by appointment. So they'll bring vehicles in, modify them, put them out for sale, and then occasionally have the inspection service available. So as with any pre-existing undersized lot, there's always challenges. And so utilizing existing space available is essential to ensuring the viability and the long-term success of his business. This particular site has a paved and graveled surface that surrounds the building that extends to the right-of-way line and beyond. Mr. Thomas would like to utilize these areas specifically along East Road and Route 125 as previously utilized by the previous businesses to display his vehicles. In order to do so, a waiver is required to allow this display to be within the property line buffer setbacks that did not exist when the lot was first utilized. That's one waiver that we'll be requesting. Additionally, Mr. Thomas would also like to utilize the same area to the west of the building where fleet service parking for Pest End is currently approved. So that graveled area on the west side, adjacent to the slope that drops down to the wet, that is currently approved for vehicle parking for fleet service. So he'd like to be able to maintain that. So that area, like I said, is located at the top of the slope near the wetlands in the northeast portion of the site. The proposed layout that we show on this plan is for employee and visitor parking, as well as all display spaces. And this achieves all of what he would need on this site, and we still are able to provide a 24-foot wide travel lane that passes from one access to the other. That was waived in the previous site plan. There was a much narrower access that was allowed on the previous site plan. We're able to capture everything that he needs on this site and open up that travel lane through it. So we have a nice access through the site and still get all of his parking that he needs here. So in order to utilize the gravel parking area, waiver is required. Obviously, parking is supposed to be on paved surfaces. We've got an area that's been traditionally utilized for parking. In the last site plan, that was allowed. So in order to kind of mitigate any sort of impact of parking in that area, what we'd like to do is run a core log, about one of the bigger ones, a 12-inch core log, all along the very top edge of that. And as you know, that's a siltation fence. More or less, you stake it in the ground, and it's filled with mulch, and it basically just eventually almost acts like a berm, a filter strip berm at the top of the hill. So we put that in place, keep that there, and then we're able to come back from that core log and leave a strip along there of just gravel that we could use for snow storage. So the vehicles don't have to be parked right to the edge of the slope. We can bring them back from that and still afford that 24-foot travel lane and all the parking that he needs. One thing that we're willing to do if the board's amenable is, I know there's a lot of people speak favorably of using recycled asphalt. So we could prepare that surface just where the vehicles are going to be parked, not the entire gravel surface, just where the vehicles are going to be parked. We could use recycled asphalt in that space. And as you know, should there be any sort of spill from a vehicle, asphalt, the recycled asphalt, you can just pick it up and clean it out of there and replace it. I wouldn't expect to see any spills here. These are the cars that are going to be marketed for sales out here. They're going to be in good shape. They'll be run through his inspection process prior to put out there, but it is a safety factor that we could introduce to the site. So other than that, what Rich would like to do is basically enhance the business by modifying the building inside and out. He's not going to change the footprint, the height, or anything like that. What he would like to do is just really go through the interior of the building, and he spoke to the zoning board about some of the things he's already done, bring the things up to current standards, safety, aesthetics, that sort of thing. He also is willing to take out a little bit of pavement along the front of the building that faces 125, introduce some plantings there, bring in some landscaping along that edge. And then also we have a space that will now be afforded along the northerly property line. We could also bring in some plantings too between the business that abuts us. So in all, not a lot of site changes, mostly striping. He'll go to full cutoff lighting on this thing. He wants to repaint the building. I don't know if you're going to do something with the roof. You talked about that, I thought.
Yeah, that's more or less down the line.
Yeah. And so other than that, like I said, very few site changes. We'll bring in a dumpster. There isn't one there now. That'll be a screen dumpster off in the left corner, as you can see that on the plan. We were asked to resubmit this to DOT. There is an existing driveway permit for this site. We submitted it back to DOT. I haven't heard back yet. We only did that about a week ago after the staff review. No other state approvals are needed. The one variance was obtained, and that was for the vehicular dealership to be allowed on the site, and the two waivers that I had mentioned, one for the buffer in the front, as well as parking on a surface that's not paved. Any questions?
All right, thanks. Anybody want to jump in? Questions?
Just, I know it says trucks. Trucks is a wide thing, right? What type of trucks are you looking?
So the background is kind of specifically targeted towards, specialized diesel trucks. My ex-partner in Salem used to be Brian Orlando's partner, Chris Mastriano. So obviously Brian owns Diesel World, Chris owns Diesel Land, and I was kind of one of the founding members with Chris to start that. We built that place in Salem on 28. And we just do, some diesel trucks that allow you, better towing capacity. They allow, getting 20 miles to the gallon with a diesel truck as opposed to trying to really strain and stress out a gas heavy duty truck. And again, that's a specialty. The background comes from, 30 years of family being in the diesel industry, specifically my dad being a diesel engineer from, the rail system. And, we'll have some regular run-of-the-mill trucks, a few cars and things like that. And as Charlie had mentioned, the other option that we're exploring is to be able to have some kind of higher end ATVs, like things like side by sides and four wheelers as well.
In the work on site, it's pretty much just like trim type packages, things like that, and there's
That's
really no
correct.
mechanical work?
So it'll be some mechanical work. A lot of the kind of state inspection and running the vehicle, kind of a normal vehicle through the gamut of getting it ready and brakes and tires and things like that. We won't be doing any tire changing or any tire stuff on site. Just, space kind of prohibits that. So one of my good friends is the manager at Town Fair and then Sullivan down the street. We'll outsource all that. And most of the mechanical work, like oil changes and things, will be done through AJA, who's kind of right over the line in Kingston. That way we have a kind of a unbiased third party inspection process so they can, kind of scrutinize everything to the fullest, put out a good product. I don't want to, keep oil and all these things on site that are not only take up a lot of space and hard to deal with, but it's just not my forte. It's kind of good to take a vehicle, have it at a third-party facility, have them go through it. We have a fixed cost. We know the cost. We get it back. We sell it. There'll be some light mechanical stuff that happens in there, and that's more along the lines of, I have years and years of customer that the customer base that requests things like, they might buy a 1-ton truck and say, I need it to take a little bit more of a load, so we'll do suspension work. There's some customers that, they have a fleet of trucks, and for their personal truck to go out and quote, they might want to dress it up a little bit with a wrap on it, with a little bit of a lift kit, rim and tire package, just kind of, make it fun. So that's mostly what will occur in-house. And as Charlie said, we will have an inspection station, but our goal is not to attract outside folks in there to, to do run-of-the-mill regular public inspections. It's just mostly an in-house thing. One of the things that, if you'll notice at Mastriano's, you look on the side of the building because the state requires you to post the state inspection. The state inspection fee on the side of that building is $110. And it was designed with working with the state of New Hampshire, Will Dunn and Jeremy. They're the two gentlemen that are in charge of all the inspections and the licensing and stuff. It's more of a way to push people away from just pulling in there. Do you guys do inspections? So once they see that, the thought is, and this was kind of a recommendation from the head of the DMV, put a very expensive price so you don't have just people pulling in there all the time. And obviously there'll be a disclaimer on our site too saying, we don't do outside state inspections. That's not part of our business model.
So more or less for your existing customer type.
Existing customers, if AJA is very backed up, they're very, very successful shop. So if they're not able to get in, I like to, if you're in the process of delivering a vehicle and you put a temp tag on it, a lot of dealerships just do what's called a lot sticker. It's March under the dealership kind of tag. I like to extend it to my customers to change it over to their birthday. So, it's just more of a convenience factor for them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you'll notice about the site is that it's not a large site, so it doesn't really support as you would need for a large-scale service station. So we're not asking for any outside containers, outside storage areas, things like that. the beauty of the site is obviously the exposure off of 125 in East Road. So he wants to utilize that for the vehicle sales.
So I'm going to read in our zoning definition of vehicular dealership, just because I have a couple questions related to this. But it says that portion of a lot or structure devoted in whole or part to, and then A, the sale of two or more new or used motor vehicles, or B, the display of two or more motor vehicles for the purpose of sale. C, the sale of display of two or more new used motorcycles that require New Hampshire state registration and inspection. D, the sale or display of two or more new or used pieces of construction equipment or farm equipment with greater than 30 horsepower. E, specifically excluded from this definition, self-propelled watercraft and off-road recreational vehicles, including but not limited to ATVs, off-road motorbikes, and snowmobiles. F, specifically excluded from this definition, self-propelled pieces of equipment under 30 horsepower used for yard maintenance, including but not limited to lawnmowers, garden tractors, and snowblowers. So a couple things here. I have a question for our team as well. Whereas there's a proposal to sort of offer some level of customization and manufacturing, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better term. Is that outside of the vehicular dealership definition? Tim, I guess I'm going to lean on you with your knowledge, and Victoria, kind of your knowledge as well.
Well, yeah, certainly manufacturing is outside that definition. But I think if you're putting pieces together that go in the vehicle that you're selling, I'd be willing to call that repair.
Modification, additional kits, additional modifications that didn't exist with I look at it as repair as being taking manufacturers or existing vehicle state and repairing it for sale versus modifications to add additional capacity to the vehicle.
I mean, I think the thing that would convince me one way or the other, are they manufacturing things for sale to other people than their repair customers or their used truck customers? That would be if that's the case, I would say that's probably not permitted. But if they're manufacturing stuff to put in the cars or trucks that they're selling, then yeah, you'd call it a kit or whatever. I mean, it's not I wouldn't consider that a separate business.
Victoria, have any input on that?
Yes, it is up to your discretion, but I would think about the intensity of the services done. Kind of altering vehicles and then selling them isn't any more intensive, in my opinion, than a regular repair facility.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to attack it. I'm just looking for the board to consider it and to clarify again. So, and maybe attack isn't the right word. I'm not going to say that this isn't necessarily an issue. I just want to bring it up to the board because it's something outside of our definition. I do have a question also for the board and for Victoria, is that the zoning determination sort of references that the ATV use is related. However, if you look at our zoning, it specifically excludes ATV sales within the definition of vehicular dealership. So I guess I'm kind of questioning the accuracy of the zoning determination more so than a question for the applicants. Does anybody else have any questions about that? And Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a couple points, I guess. They got the variance because the former use had been abandoned for more than a year. And the sticky point there is it's within 1,000 feet of another vehicular dealership. If you have a variance to sell vehicles on the property, then I don't think the addition of sales of, if ATV isn't considered a vehicle, then it doesn't fall within the definition of the 1,000-foot variance anyway. So it would be a normal retail sale. So my opinion would be it's, that would be permitted as well.
Yeah, and again, I'm just looking at, because of the definition of vehicular dealership, because it's specifically, E says specifically exclude from this definition is self-propelled watercraft and off-road recreational vehicles, including but not limited to ATVs, off-road motorbikes, and snowmobiles. So if the change of use is to vehicular dealership, technically E excludes ATV sales. So I'm just sort of putting that out there for the board to consider. Again, we may want to get some clarification about that, and maybe that's something the board.
It's a zoning amendment that we could consider in the coming years because it doesn't allow it in any other section. It just doesn't allow it within this. But it is respectively an allowed use because it's not any more intensive. Also, it's allowed in other locations. Plaistow Power Sports is right down the street.
Sure.
They sell ATVs.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, I just want to look at our zoning and make sure that we have an understanding and are okay with the way the zoning reads. Anybody have any questions on that matter?
No, I'm good with it.
Anybody have any concerns on that front?
No.
Well, I think there was a concern on where were the ATVs going to be parked? Is there like a designated area for those? Is it going to be all mixed in, or that
I
was?
didn't
that was a-
discern between ATVs and vehicle parking,
Yeah,
sales
because
vehicle
that was
parking.
a concern from staff about where those were going to be parked.
Does the board have a concern about where they're going to be parked?
I'm just bringing it up because it was brought to our attention.
I mean, if the board has a concern or a preferred place for them to be displayed or not to be displayed, I'm sure we could entertain that, but I didn't discern between the two.
And just to be clear, also, the ATVs would be kind of on a different front because those would all be kept inside at the close of business every day. So kind of like Plaistow Power Sports or Levitt's, they put vehicles out front. They leave them there. They put ATVs, motorcycles, things like that, and they come in and get stored inside. But we're all about compliance here, so if there's any recommendations or any preferences, we're more than happy to work with it for sure.
I think it's just important to look at our zoning and make sure that everybody's 100% on board, and it protects the applicants as well. And again, if there's any individual concerns, we can hopefully address them and work through them. So it's kind of the intent of mentioning it.
Yeah, the original concern from staff was basically lumped into the whole conversation of the parking in the back of the lot on gravel. ATV parking there could be less intensive, so maybe that could be added into the consideration, but we haven't started talking about that. It does change, my opinion personally, that the ATVs are going inside at night. Do you know how many on average you think that you'll have at a
It's
time?
really not going to be a lot. I mean, I would probably say, a handful to, under a dozen for sure.
So let's move to the, unless anybody else wants to jump in, let's move to discuss the parking. I think that's going to be the discussion about the waivers effectively. So let's talk about that a little bit more specifically. These spots right now, as you have them drawn on page 3,
Yes.
you're saying that they currently exist as such, but on the gravel, essentially, surface?
Okay, so talking about the parking along the northwesterly side, along the gravel surface.
Yes.
That
abutting
is, currently that's approved on the Pest End site plan for fleet service parking. I think they have 15, 16 spaces allotted for that. So we're looking to just utilize that same space. And, as I mentioned, with some additional buffering that I've provided with the core log and moving it back a little bit and leaving some snow storage area between the core log and the top of the slope and the backside of the parking spaces.
Anybody know how many vehicles? Pest End was only had a handful of vehicles, right? 2 or 3, 4, something like that.
It went in.
Well, I think they have
They have
A
over
couple
50.
dozen,
Yeah, they have
but
over
if
50
it's,
in their fleet.
it's a maintenance site, so there might
They
be
weren't there.
3 or 4
Okay.
there at a time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of. I don't recall seeing a
There
bunch
was,
there.
You know, at
And
least
there were containers out there, right?
that is correct. And the containers, one of them's gone, the other one's going to be gone the next day or so. Because I know that was a bone of contention for a while, not wanting those containers there. But there was definitely a lot of utilization of parking on, that specified area.
Just a question about the parking itself and what's going to be parked there. The intent is to, obviously have product that you're looking to sell. But do you envision having vehicles on site that are in various states of like disrepair or cannibalization or
No,
anything
so
like that?
this is specifically something that we talked about at ZBA as well. A vehicle so say if I buy a vehicle at auction, it doesn't even come to our shop. It gets brought directly to the outside service repair shop. Every square inch, every square foot of that is very valuable. There will be vehicles displayed that somebody could walk up to, that drove 3.5 hours, get in it and drive it away safely after a test drive. We're not doing all this outside repair. We're not taking vehicles that have leaky, oil filters and oil pans and all these things. That's not part of the business plan, and that's not part of our success over the past, 15 plus years.
So then the vehicle's outside, is basically it's a finished product.
It is a finished product.
So the right now, the 12-foot buffer, what is the existing condition of that?
It's pretty much paved right up to the right-of-way line.
I'm trying to picture it as well. I haven't driven by and taken a good look at it. One of the things since I've been on the board is considering types of uses in town, and we did an economic development survey, really asking for feedback from the townspeople about what they want out of our commercial businesses and whatnot. And one of the things we focused on is trying to help with the appearance of businesses and really enforcing landscape buffers and pushing back setbacks and things like that. So if I look at this appropriately or properly, the intention is to have vehicles lined up essentially all on that,
Correct.
both on East Road and out to 125. And I think what we've heard from the townspeople is that they'd rather see green, they'd rather see more appealing type of appearances out of the businesses. Any additional comments from the board on that front?
Maybe you could just elaborate a little bit on the proposed landscaping that you around the building structure.
Sure. As you can see on both sheets 2 and 3. Well, let me just speak to the chairman's thoughts about the pavement. Right now, if you look at the easterly side of the property that runs along Plastow Road, the pavement pretty much runs right along the right-of-way line. And then you have a green space, and then the paved sidewalk that's within adjacent to the highway. So you do have a green strip there. It's not controlled by Mr. Thomas. It's the right-of-way. It's part of the state right-of-way, but there is some green space there. And then on the southerly side, adjacent to East Road, when we did our survey of the property, we found that the previous plan didn't show the right-of-way correctly there. And it showed it more or less following the pavement on the property. It doesn't do that. It's actually further into the property than what was shown on the previous plan. So he's going to lose some of that space there along East Road that's within the right-of-way, even though it's paved and it looks like it's part of his lot. It isn't. So the striping would have to be offset from that. So he loses a little bit of space there. But again, in between East Road and the existing pavement, there's a fair amount of green space there. Granted, within the town state right-of-way, there is green space between the roadway and the property. It just isn't on his lot. So what we thought we'd do is enhance it wherever we could. And obviously there's not a lot of space here, but there's a space between or on either side of the office on the east side of the building that we could put in landscape plantings along the facade of the building and enhance that as much as we could. And now that we don't need to travel through to abutting lot 27-17 to the north, we can add landscaping along that lot line in between those two lots. Not a lot of opportunity to add landscaping, but I tried to squeak in as much as I possibly could and still utilize the site for what Mr. Thomas's intentions are, which is display vehicles, and as well as have parking for his own employees and an occasional customer.
I'm sure you have a,
Done, yeah.
that answer your question?
That answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot you can really do with that lot.
No.
From driving by it and looking at it, I think we all know right where the lot is.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of what happened there years ago with the MTBE, that's why we now have town water, because of that site.
Oh, that was a source of,
That was it,
interesting.
the old Lido gas station.
Oh.
Yeah, there's
Underground-
monitoring wells all through the site
Underground.
and still
tank
being
that leaked.
monitored.
Where were those tanks located? Any idea? On this
I don't
property?
know.
What's that?
I don't know. I've never seen those plans.
Yeah. So that goes back to that, and it's unrelated. I get it. I just, we'll have to just work through and talk through the parking, and where the location of the parking is and the surface there. So if anybody has any questions about that, any concerns, certainly offer that up.
I did keep all the parking spaces as 9 by 18, so they're full-size parking spaces, realizing that he's going to be mostly having trucks here on display. So I didn't want to, introduce a smaller parking space and try and jam more vehicles in there. I kept it a traditional 9 by 18 space throughout the entire site.
As far as the fire lane goes, it's plenty, in case that there is a vehicle fire or something like that, we still have good access for the existing lane there
Yes.
for a fire
I
engine
kept
to get
that
in.
24 feet wide from one entrance to the other.
Okay.
And so that gives you, for fire vehicle access, it gives you direct access to two sides of the building as you drive through there, both the north and the west side.
All right.
I also added a handicap space with a van accessible aisle too onto the site. That's not currently there now.
And as far as the building goes, it's all staying as is, but it sounds like you talked about sort of make some changes on the interior.
Yeah.
Nothing else structurally though, no additional changes.
No, the footprint will stay the same.
Okay. Hours of operation. What's the anticipated hours of operation?
Have that noted on sheet 1.
I believe what we put, Charlie, is so Monday through Thursday, I believe it's either 8 to 7 or 9 to 7, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be more of a 10 to or 9 to 5. Sunday will be laid out on our website as appointment only.
Okay. Any questions from the board on the hours of operation? I know that's, is that a residential property further down on East Road, 27-15, is that correct?
2715 is residential, correct.
And did you effectively use the same hours that Peston had, or is this different?
No, I think
I don't remember seeing.
I guess I'm just thinking about, some of the work that might be done on a Saturday or Sunday or the evenings at the shop level, being so close to it.
Yeah, so there
Residential
won't be a
property.
mechanic on staff over and above the hours that we're open. And when it comes to, Sunday by appointment only, it's more or less to have somebody that, doesn't have as much of a flexible schedule. Again, these are specialized trucks. More than 50% of our customers travel over 2 hours to acquire these specialized vehicles. So if their schedule allows them to be there on a Sunday, one of us would meet them specifically to do that, but there won't be a mechanic working on Sunday. That'll be a situation to where if they like the vehicle, they drive it. If it's previously state inspected, we'll put a temp tag on it and they can drive it home if they want to, but there won't be, you won't be pulling that vehicle in, changing the sticker or anything like that.
All right. Any other comments, questions from the board? Yes, Tim?
Yeah. Going back to the Lido station, all that contamination was cleaned up. And as Charlie mentioned, there are monitoring wells. It seems to me there was some air quality issues in the building. And I don't know if those have all been resolved. I think it's likely that they were, but probably either check with D to see if we have something from DES, or check with DES to see that they have some kind of a letter that says it's okay.
So there was an environmental study, and so my bank is North Shore Bank, and for them to continue, the process and close the SBA portion, there was more environmental tests, that were looked at. There were reports that had been done, and my belief is that it was not a factor at this point. Again, there was an existing bathroom internally that basically had the vent pipe that didn't exit the building due to the roof structure, and there was, I guess, an issue there. You'll notice that basically I brought in a team. I put 2 bathrooms, brand new bathrooms in there. It's all done by a licensed plumber that works here local, David Plumbing and Heating. The vent structure now exits the building. It's all done properly. There was kind of an internal leak also from the sewage pipe. So there was kind of 2 issues there. And then from what I understand, years earlier, from, the monitoring wells, obviously on the outside and the things that happen in the earth, there had been some previous air concerns, but nothing really validated and documented that really kind of stuck. And it, to my knowledge, it had been multiple years since that really was brought up by the company that did the environmental studies.
Okay.
We're going to do everything we can to do, everything by the book. I want to beautify the location. We've already taken, they had a mechanic sink that the drain exited the side of the building and it would just pour out on the lot. That's all rectified. That's all done up to code. And our next step is to convert everything to LED, which I already have, a licensed electrician. I've already bought most of the product to do that, just to make it more efficient, make it aesthetically look better. Again, painting the outside, looking at changing out the windows and things like that are, it's kind of been an eyesore for quite some time. And, we want to make it so that it's kind of fits in with the progression that Plaistow has developed over the past decade. We want it to be a comfortable, we refer to it as when you come buy a truck from us, it's kind of like the Disney experience. And, we're going to do everything we can to beautify it and make it so.
Just one question. I mean, just because you brought up the idea of a drain, are there internal drains at all in the facility? I mean, in term mechanic wise,
No.
No drains.
No drains. No, they got rid of it. You could see there was existing ones from years and years and years ago, but as part of the plan and the environmental kind of cleanup, those things were all concreted, filled in. So there's no drains from that standpoint whatsoever.
Right.
And I did carry forward the same notes that were on the Pest End site plan that had anything to do with the water monitoring and all that sort of stuff in compliance with DES. I added to this plan as well.
So is it appropriate, since we're talking about drainage and things like that, and they're talking about what kind of things they plan to do and not do, is it appropriate to add some additional language to the plans about what's allowed in terms of the types of maintenance? Because again, it doesn't sound like you're going to be doing, are you going to be doing oil changes?
No.
Okay. So I don't know if it's appropriate to add some language to that. And only from the standpoint of not saying, well, we just want to tell you what you can and can't do, but more so because of the potential for fluids and other things that may impact.
Which again, like internally, there's no way for anything to escape. Just to be very clear, when it comes to repairing a vehicle or doing some upgrades, there are times that, that there are certain fluids that need to be drained. If you're doing, say, like, a lift kit and you need to change a drive shaft pitch, the rear differential needs to come out, and obviously the fluid needs to be drained. But I'm very, very particular about that. And, the past 10 years in Salem, Salem is very, very specific about that. We have a full process in place to take that, and it's only that for that use whatsoever. And then a company comes and, disposes of it. Currently, Pest End does a significant amount of oil changes. In fact, if you look outside of the building, there's 55-gallon drums of all their oil that sits outside of the building. And then there's a oil discard 55-gallon drum that they put their filters and their bad oil in. All that sits outside of the building. That won't occur, with us. It's not going to be to that volume, of course.
Someone remind me that the variance that they received would actually carry over for someone to continue to use this property in the same use. Is that correct? Or is it owner specific?
Variance due to the number of dealerships.
No, but my point is that if, say, they decide to move to a new place in 2 years, and someone else said, hey, we want to jump in and continue doing auto sales, they could, right? Because of the variance?
Yes.
Variance goes with the land.
Yeah. So with that in mind, my only point is, and what I'm getting at is, even though they may not do certain things there, we have to consider that the variance has changed the use of the land. And if we want to apply anything that maybe doesn't apply to them, but for future use, we want to consider it now before we approve the site plan. Make sense?
Yes.
So if we want to limit any type of specific use specific to what they're trying to do, even though they may not do it, we might want to consider that now.
Maybe it's as simple as just a note saying that there'll be no outside repair or modification of vehicles. Everything's done within the service area.
And you're right, to Richard's point, right? The next guy might bring in, 8, loaner car or whatever, project car, or what's the word I'm looking for? Donor cars, right? And put
Yeah.
together some things like that. So
We're not going anywhere.
well, if you're successful, you might want a bigger property, right?
Honestly, this is a family niche, and really to be at our success rate, you really don't need. I don't want to grow and make it unmanageable. What we do works. It's great. We have wonderful repeat customers, and I'm not gonna outgrow that situation. It's gonna be perfect for what I want to do for time off. I have 2 young children. I want to be able to have a quality of life and a business that's a passion and a hobby. So
So we've got 2 waivers. No, I appreciate that, and that's awesome. We've got 2 waivers we got to go through. So we've got to consider the parking in the back as well as the front buffer. This is the tough thing, right? Especially with the economic development plan and the findings, where people have essentially come out and said, we want to see less car sales in town. We want to see less of other uses. And here we are adding a vehicle sales use, right? And I don't mean this personally, but it kind of goes against what the public is telling us they want to see in terms of how the town changes economically.
But this is almost one of those lots. It's hard to imagine something else kind of going in there. You know what I mean?
Potentially, yeah.
This is unique, I think.
I get it. And so what I'm saying is considering the buffer, right? the waiver to allow display of vehicles up front. However, this is their business. So that's a major takeaway. If we say, oh, no, you can't do that. If it was a different type of business, we might be less inclined to accept the waiver. So,
And I honestly think that one of the reasons there were quite a few vehicle dealerships along 125 is the lack of municipal water. Everybody's relying on their own well, and on smaller lots or medium-sized lots, there's really not a lot of options for restaurants and things like that would have a higher water use. Now that you have that municipal water available, you're probably going to see some of the older sites that were used as dealerships look at different kinds of opportunities there. This is a small lot. Even with the municipal water, it doesn't really open it up for anything else. And like I said, the building's been there since the 70s, and it's still pretty much the same building it's been since the 70s. It's a vehicle repair shop. So you're right, this is different, but I certainly understand, what the public would like to see along 125, and I think that's coming. I think it's changing now.
all right. So with that in mind, going back to my thoughts about how this variance applies to the land, is there any other considerations of conditions that we would maybe want to put on this? Charlie had mentioned, stating something about outside repairs.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
About the outside repairs.
Anything else?
I have zero objection to that. Absolutely. I want everybody to be comfortable with it.
Tim, is there anything, phraseology that would cover, let's say, cannibalized or non-retail type use of automobiles and things like that? So that you don't have, let's say, a subsequent business that comes on and says that, I have 30 parking spaces, but I'm going to use 20 of them for, junks that I'm going to.
I think we would call that a junkyard, which is not a permitted use.
All right, I was exaggerating.
Well, I
but
know,
So,
yeah.
all right, so instead of 30, 20, I'll say 5, 10.
Well, yeah. I mean, going back to our point, right? You get 5 donor vehicles that are used to sort of to supplement and build up some other vehicles. The outside repair maybe takes care of some of that, but they could say, well, it's just storage. We'll bring the cars inside, take them apart, and use them for other vehicles. So maybe there is some language around that. No storage of, non-saleable vehicles or something like that.
I don't know. I guess if you worked at it enough, you could come up with something specific, but I don't see the need to do that here.
Right.
Particularly when the ATVs are going to be mostly inside, that would have been a bigger concern.
Any thoughts, Richard? Do you want to try to craft something?
No. I mean, if it's not a concern, I like the idea of doing the repair work being confined to the inside. I think, if it's a visually attractive business, I think that's important. I think the site is such that, it is sort of what it is. So I would even just think that, an attractive display of the product actually enhances the aesthetic value of what's actually there. So I'm just envisioning more of a dystopian picture of some follow-on use or something where it's because we have had places in town that kind of have devolved to that. And I don't know if it was designated as a junkyard at some point. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I mean, if we can.
I think there was an enforcement issue or something.
Oh, yeah. Not too far from there, right?
Right.
Yeah. Probably a different story.
Oh, across the street.
Yeah.
I mean, across the
Yeah,
street.
it was right across the street, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Davy residence.
Yeah.
He just stored vehicles there.
Yeah.
That was
I mean, if
a
we can,
different story.
again, this clearly has nothing to do with them. I'm just thinking 5 years down the road, he's so successful. He found a great new spot, and somebody comes in and starts putting junk vehicles there. We'd be kind of maybe disappointed that there wasn't anything that specified it could be just a 3 lines, a 6 line
Is
sentence.
there anything that contemplates that, or is that just sort of making it up as I'm going here?
You got any thoughts, Victoria?
I'm not sure of the legal parameters in restricting such specificities of the use.
Well, we've kind of gotten burnt by not being specific about uses in the past on completely other things, nothing to do with you or anything. So I think that's why I'm just trying to think about the unknown. But better to be prudent now than later on regret that we didn't put something in there. Probably like Richard said, probably not going to come to bear, but all right. So why don't we start with the waivers, right, to keep this thing moving, and we'll get to that.
Absolutely.
Article 3, 230, Section 230-23, landscape buffer requirements. The applicant is requesting to waive the front buffer requirements to be able to have display parking along Route 125. They're offering to provide additional plantings against the building. Board is going to determine justification for this request acceptable to grant the waiver. And with that in mind, there's a draft motion prepared for the board's consideration. Is the board prepared to discuss these waivers at this time and to put forth the motion? Would someone like to make a,
I move to grant the waiver requested for Article 3, Section 230-23, landscape requirements for the reasons noted in the request.
is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Chuck seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500 passes. Okay, and then the second waiver is Article 1, 230-12H2F, off-street parking requirements. Regulation requires that all off-street parking be on bituminous concrete. Bituminous, right?
Correct. Bituminous.
Bituminous. The applicant is requesting this requirement to be waived as this was previously allowed under a former site plan. Once again, there's a draft motion that's been prepared for the board. Is there any additional discussion prior to reading the motion?
Well, I think the concern is the wetlands in the back.
Okay.
So what happens with like runoff? You said there was going to be like some kind of a,
Yeah, so I wanted to put erosion control along the top edge of that slope. It's a core log. Basically, once you stake it in there, it stays there. It acts almost like a filter strip or a berm along that leading edge. And then we don't need to park our vehicles all the way to the back edge of it. We can bring them back some, leave an area of gravel where we can have snow storage or just gravel during the summer months. And then what I was contemplating is that little bit of area that we do have gravel within that parking space, perhaps we could bring in the recycled asphalt there. And so then you'd have a nice clean edge, the recycled asphalt, the gravel, and then you'd have your core log beyond that before you hit the top of the slope. So you've got some space, you've got some opportunity. If there is an event of a spill, it's going to be on the recycled asphalt that can be removed and replaced. And you've got a buffer before the top of the slope where you have, I mean, still there's a slope there and you still have another 20 or 30 feet before you get to the wetland. Granted, it's down that slope. It's hard to control any sort of a runoff, but for most times of the year, if there's any sort of a spill, it can be contained right there within the recycled asphalt. And as Richard said, he doesn't anticipate having vehicles out there that would have any sort of issue like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at just the Google Maps picture of the land. It looks like there's the building, there's some pavement, and now there's just dirt and then the tree line. Does it fall off down there at the tree line?
Yep.
And then there's a fence denoting the other property.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that. It's something you can pull up, Charlie. So this picture has just a couple of pickup trucks on it right now. And I guess the question is, what would we recommend that sort of accommodates, but I don't necessarily want to pave everything, right? Considering they may or may not have used the full length, and it sounds like you anticipate using all those spots.
Yes, that's correct.
So right now, it just looks like they're parking on grass.
Pretty much.
And this, it was stated that this is on the site plan as noted as spots in the previous site plan? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. They showed 14 spaces.
And you've got those same 14 spaces in the same
No,
spots?
I modified it a little bit. I moved it further up from the southerly property line and allowed a little bit more space for access to the dumpster.
Any further in towards a tree line than it currently is? Is there intention to cut back the tree line and eliminate
No,
any of the
no,
space
there's
there?
no intention to touch the tree line at all.
Did they put snow onto those spots in the past?
Actually, it looks like it was the back edge of the parking was a little bit closer to the top of the slope. And they showed snow storage on the slope line, so it probably was pushed over the slope. I'm trying to maintain the snow storage above the slope.
Tim, since you're on the Concom, do you have any concerns or questions about this parking and sort of snow storage and anything else related to this?
No, not really. If it was a larger parcel, I would say we'd be concerned about the untreated snow storage. But I think there's such a small parcel that it'd probably be all right.
What's the board's recommendation on how to treat the surface? And would that be included in the plans? If you were to pull it up right now, it just looks like it's kind of unwatered grass and gravel kind of mixed in, pebbles. Doesn't look like they put down a surface per se, or would you say that they did at some point?
I don't think they did. I think they paved up to that point and then they've just utilized the gravel beyond that.
Okay. So you
It doesn't look like there was ever any crushed stone or anything like that. It looks
Yeah.
like just gravel was brought in at some point, maybe years and years ago.
Now, in terms of the asphalt that you'd be putting down, how much of how deep does that go in terms of
Usually
surface?
the 3 inches at a minimum.
3 inches, okay.
What do you think is preferable, Tim? Just to leave it as is, or to put the asphalt down?
I mean, for this use, I don't mind the recycled asphalt being used.
I have about 6 inches of it in my driveway, and it's been in place now for 4 years, and it's still permeable. Water still gets through it.
Mm.
So I like the idea that it's still a permeable surface. It's something that can be pulled up if there's an oil spill, and that can be replaced. And it's relatively flat there. It's an easy install. Offers a little bit of protection.
Is that currently on the plan that you would do that, or do you just
Yes.
discuss that you were going to potentially do it?
No, I actually added it to the plan, and so that's shown on sheet 2. And I show it just going to the back of the spaces.
All right. Any other questions, Lori or the board, regarding this?
No.
Are we ready to consider the waiver? Okay, would someone like to read the waiver request?
I move to grant the waiver requested, Article 1, Section 230-12H, Section 2(3), F, and allow parking on gravel for display vehicles for reasons noted in the request.
Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Richard makes the motion, Chuck seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Charlene, you'll note that it says "and" allow, not "an."
I already noticed.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 500 passes. Okay. Any other comments or questions about the application from the
I'd like
board?
to revisit one thought that the board was having. excuse me, and that's for the display spaces. And Rich and I were just kind of talking about it a little bit. Maybe we could have some sort of a note on there that any vehicle parked within the display spaces has to be state inspectable within 30 days of placement. Rich has no problem doing that. That could be a note on the plan, and that'll prevent your junk cars from showing up on the next site from the next applicant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
That'd be great.
All right.
You want to join the planning board, Charlie? I mean,
Can we make it broad and say vehicles?
Excuse me?
Can we make it broad and say vehicles? Any vehicles in the display parking?
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
yeah, vehicles parked in display spaces need to be state inspectable within 30 days.
Sold.
That's great.
No outside repairs. One thing, as one of the conditions on the approval notes, something along the lines of designated parking for ATVs and motor vehicles to be shown on the plan, on the site plan. So we've kind of talked about that and what that's going to look like. So I think if we do condition that, we've got to consider with the new information, because we know that, is the board concerned where the vehicles are shown and where the ATVs are shown per se, understanding that in the evenings he's got to safely protect his ATVs and bring them inside anyways?
That sounds like he's saying he's going to put them inside every night. So
Yeah.
I don't.
So in terms of the fact that on our conditional approval, it has a line regarding designated parking for ATVs and motor vehicles, do we even care about that line?
Well, I think that's in there just to show that there's designated spots for both of them.
Okay.
I think that's all that means.
Charlie, you okay with that language around the conditional approval designated that it be conditioned that parking for ATVs and motor vehicles be designated? I don't know if maybe you're gonna have parking for employees versus parking for saleable.
I do. I did designate employee and visitor parking.
Okay.
And then I had all the displays shown in a box around the number. Then the employees is with a circle. So, Rich, do you have a preference? We'd like to see the ATVs?
I guess what I just because of the way, if you look at the layout of specific vehicles, and it's not like, Diesel World down the street where they have it designated and they're all side by side. There are some different ways for the vehicles to be parked, the main vehicles to be parked. So my thought is, if there is an area between two allotted spots and you could put, say, a four-wheeler in between there, I'd like to be able to use up, because, as we all know, it's such a small spot. Every inch, every foot is so very important. So, with respect to, to making it aesthetically look good, I'd like to kind of, not have a specific restriction on that if the board, would allow that.
The way I kind of read it is all the parking spots, Charlie he has them already numbered. So I think as long as the vehicles are inside, and the ATVs are inside those numbered spots, I think you're covered.
Yeah,
That's how I'm reading it.
And I agree. The only thing that would come up is if, so Charlie, what are you allowing for in terms of actual, the numbered spot should be equal to the number of vehicles, including ATVs, to be sold. Should I understand that appropriately?
Specifically, the number of spots would be tied to the dealer license application through the state of New Hampshire. So if it was 35, it would be 35 specific vehicles, and ATVs would, kind of be in addition to that.
So maybe that's something we need to consider in terms of that, and if the board isn't concerned about that or not.
So you're saying you'd have X number of ATVs in a 9x8 parking space that's designated here. So I mean, it could potentially be the case, whatever that is.
Yeah, because in theory, you could probably fit 2 4-wheelers in a parking spot
Right.
where one vehicle would go.
Yeah.
As long as they're in those numbered parking spots, I think we're good that are on here.
Is that an assumption that we can make, that saleable vehicles will be staged within the designated parking? You have any concerns about that?
Well, it just seems like
How-
it's
you
spelled out on here that it is a concern, so.
Yeah, so within that, I haven't had a car lot come in front of me since I've been on the board.
I never have since I've been on it.
Oh, really? We just had them forever. So within that, I'll ask those who have had experience with applications for used car lots, what kind of specific things, and I guess we're going to go to Tim, right? Because everyone else is within the same time frame as me. So, Tim, what are the things regarding that type of information, right? Number of spots, number of vehicles, because we know what a car lot can do with a specific space. You go to a Honda dealership, they have every car with minimal inches in between them back in the day when they carried a ton of inventory.
Right.
So you could take maybe it says 30 spaces on here, but he could probably fit 70 cars on here if he got creative, which I don't think anybody really wants to see. I don't think he wants to see it either. But to my point is that something we designate and have designated in the past, Tim?
I think we've tried to do that, but I don't think we've been very successful.
So the
And
dealership
I'm-
license and code enforcement and site plan have to all line up. So if you say that you're going to do a certain number of spots and end up overdoing it, then code enforcement could come in.
Yeah.
There could be issues with your dealership license. So you're supposed to play by the rules.
Right.
So in theory, if you've got 30, how many spaces here?
34, I think I had.
There's 41 spaces, right?
41 for display vehicles?
34 for
There's
display.
34 for display vehicles, and then you have additional ones for employee parking.
7 for employee and
And
visitor
customer.
parking.
Yeah. So if you've got, I'm sorry, 34,
34.
then that would say that you might have, 27 vehicles and 7 ATVs, not 27 vehicles and 14 ATVs. Right?
So, I mean, ATVs don't fall under the same kind of umbrella because they're titled or registered vehicles. So, if specifically you're looking at like how the state looks at it, they would tell you that if you apply for a 34 vehicle license, ATVs don't fall under the 34 specific number per se.
Maybe that's why our zoning excludes ATVs, which I read
But
earlier.
I guess the question would
No,
be, the
zoning
ATVs
determination
you
said
plan on
it's the same.
putting inside those designated parking spots? Or would you have,
I mean,
you're
there's not
talking
much-
30?
There's not much room left, so
So they would-
theoretically, yes. But if you look on the plan, on the corner that, that goes along 125.
Yeah.
And then as you head up East Road, if you look at the layout of the size of the parking spots, theoretically, right, you could have, 5 smaller vehicles and have enough space in between them to put a four-wheeler, a four-wheeler, a four-wheeler, a four-wheeler, and you could have 4 of them on, the main road of East Road or 125, due to the fact that, all the trucks aren't going to be 22 feet long. There's some vehicles that might be 15 feet. And if you have 2 of those back to back and you can squeeze in a four-wheeler,
So it could vary week to week, really.
Well, let me ask it another way. I mean, you're going to be bringing them in at night, you said.
that is
Right.
correct. Absolutely.
So what theoretically is the storage capacity of like ATVs in the building that you're going to be putting them in?
I mean, so you're going to have, there's already an existing lift.
Yeah.
I am undecided whether I'm going to have another lift on the left-hand side, depending upon,
Yeah, so there's a maximum,
Yeah, I was gonna
maximum
say, but,
that's
you know,
constrained by the building
10
itself.
10 is going to be,
Okay. So that's sort of the answer right there, right?
So you're
So
talking
it's 10 ATVs,
and they can only be out during the day because
Yeah.
at night they're coming in.
right? So it isn't like,
they're not going to be there in the
there's
morning.
no threat of like 1,000 ATVs being put
Yeah,
on this
it's
plot.
nothing
so.
like that. It's kind of, if you look at Levitt's lot, they have, they have, in the summer, they'll have 3 motorcycles, 4 4-wheelers, 2, 3 side-by-sides.
Yeah, so. So I think the physical reality kind of speaks to, the concern, I think.
No, I think it was a worthwhile discussion,
Yeah.
considering the number of spots and then the potential. And again, we can also look past what he can do and what the next guy might do. So we might want to consider that the next guy might think he can put 30 of them out
Right.
amongst the property. And so if we don't consider it now, then it's a done
If he
deal.
puts 30 out there and leaves them out at night, good luck to him, what he's gonna have there in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
True.
Maybe he puts, a fence up and tack dogs. I don't know. All right. Does anybody want to speak to that any more specifically? Do you have any more questions, Lori?
No,
You think that the plan as outlined is sufficient? Or
I don't know. It just, the way it's worded on our paper here, it seems like it's a concern, but
I'm trying to consider it as well. That's why I was asking if.
Well, I think you're gonna have to look at the designated parking. It's really, you can see where the designated parking is around there. So it's a matter of how many ATVs and trucks he has around there, which, depending on how you can park them, it's gonna change.
Yeah, I mean,
But other than that, though, that really is the area where he's gonna have to park them, right?
if staff is sort of recommending we get some specific information regarding vehicle versus ATV parking, then
you don't display these on racks or anything, like stack them type thing.
No, in my experience,
So like
it's
do you know what
just-
I'm kind of talking
I
about?
absolutely do. Like, driving Jeeps up or having, like down the street, all the truck beds up in the air. To me, if somebody drives by and sees a dump truck with the bed down, you don't need to create all this stuff. So, I'm gonna keep more of a tighter situation. I'm not gonna, create these piles or build these, lifts to drive Jeeps up on and things like that. Just there's no need for it for me. And quite honestly, being on a corner like that, it could create traffic issues and people, visibility, and
Right.
it's just not.
Yeah,
It's nothing that I need to do.
okay.
Victoria, anything to add?
I don't know if we need to change that's on here.
That's what I'm exactly, and
What is the suggestion we do with that?
designated park for ATVs,
For the
motor
number of
vehicles.
spaces per each? Is that what you're asking?
Well, designated parking for ATVs and motor vehicles be shown on the site plan.
Yes.
It's like-
Well,
As I said before, it is something that you're gonna have to deal with in the future. So better to make the decision now.
Would it be-
Code enforcement and licensure.
Would it be easier to put a note of where you can't have them, like within the fire lane or the loading areas?
That's a given because you have a labeled fire lane.
No, I mean, just right. So our staff, planning administrator, will sort of write up the information, and it's very helpful. And then sometimes we add to it, but we do have sort of a condition. It sounds like Tim's going to pipe in a second, but we do have a condition that's written. So we need to, as we read this draft, and it's going to be set in stone for the application potentially, we want to make sure we get it right. Tim, did you want to add something?
Well, maybe we add a note on the plan that says ATVs must be stored inside the building or on designated parking spaces. And how they interweave trucks and ATVs in the designated parking spaces, I don't think they care. As long as, but what we don't want is ATVs scattered all over the place. So if the note says they're either inside the building or on designated parking.
We're not really telling him how many he can have in a parking space,
how to
or
park
how
them,
to
it's
do it
just-
on a parking space. We know he's going to do it to the best of his,
Yeah.
visually appealing opportunity. All right, that sounds good. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
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 Say that again, Tim.
ATV parking, ATV storage must be either inside the building or on designated parking spaces.
Perfect.
To be inside building or in designated. You have any questions about that, Charlie, or applicant? Any concerns?
No.
That sound fair? Kind of achieves what I think what we're getting at.
Pretty much stack them up the way you want around the building.
That's it.
He's gonna look like that. He's gonna have that Carvana type thing.
The vendor.
Okay. Any other questions about this application? Anything else that we need to hash out? With regard to the conditions, it does reference an NHDOT driveway permit. We did address the designated parking. We have voted on the waivers. Everything else looks to be standard procedure stuff. All right.
But are we scrapping the condition of designated parking for ATVs and motor vehicles must be shown on the site plan?
Yes. Yeah, and let me just, so we're going to have a few additional conditions. One of which is going to read, vehicles parked in display spaces need to be state inspectable within 30 days. We're going to have no outside repairs. And we're going to have,
Why don't you just make the motion, Tom?
I'll read this last one and then I'll make the motion. I'm sorry, what?
We should get our wording down.
Yep. No outside repairs. And then the last one's going to be ATV parking to be permitted inside the building or in designated parking spaces.
How about repair work confined to inside the garage?
Repair work to be confined in garage. Anybody have a question about that?
Nope.
All right. Then you want me to read the conditional approval? I usually like to pawn that off since.
We're giving it right back to you this time.
Just remember when when we do the reading of all those warrant articles and stuff, it really wears me out. I should get my kids to do that because they can talk a lot, right? All right. I move to approve the amended site plan for a motor vehicle dealership with ATV sales and a repair garage at 78 Plaistow Road, tax map 27, lot 16, with the following conditions. Receipt of NHDOT driveway permits for East Road and Route 125 and the notes updated for the permit numbers. Waivers notes to be updated on plan to show date granted. All recording materials to be submitted to the planning department within 90 days of the date of approval. Reopening of the public hearing is required to extend the 90-day deadline to provide the recording materials. Request to reopen the public hearing must be filed in a timely manner, including all re-notification fees prior to the expiration of the 90-day deadline. Vehicles parked in display spaces need to be state inspectable within 30 days. Repair work to be confined in the garage space. ATV parking to be permitted inside the building or in designated parking spaces. Do I have a second on the motion?
I second it.
Richard seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. There are no additional structures being proposed as part of this amendment, therefore no impact fees are applicable. With that, we wish you the best of luck.
Good luck.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Okay. All right. With that, that brings us to PB 23-05, a conceptual discussion with Albert C. Couillard, regarding potential subdivision PRD development of a portion of the property at 93 Forest Street, tax map 66, lot 17 in the LDR zoning district. Property owner of record is the Haverhill Country Club. This is a conceptual discussion only. This is not a public hearing. Abutters haven't been noticed. And with that, I would like to invite, are you Mr. Couillard? Did I get that name right? Yes. Great.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. If you don't mind, you can speak and you can introduce yourself and spell out anything. You're all set, Charlene?
Yeah, I know him.
And then just
I don't
speaking to
know,
the,
I don't
Victoria
know.
might have to help me with this. If you want the plans put up on the board, I thought Dee said that there'd be some,
With this being conceptual, the plans that you're showing are only supposed to be plans that are already been approved by the board. No new plans are supposed to be shown because there's been no abutters notice. So do you have a plan of Haverhill Country Club's layout or a plan of Abbey Road?
I think the plans that I submitted to Dee were in compliance with the regulations you're talking about.
Not according to the application, that it was checked off as a conceptual consultation.
what is our,
It says as a note, applicants may refer to any previous planning board approved and recorded plan. No new plans can be displayed at a meeting without a butter notification.
I do have a Haverhill Country Club plan, and I do have a conceptual plan that if we can't put it up, we can't put it up.
No new plan can be displayed without the abutters knowing.
Okay. I didn't realize that when I came this evening.
that's in our language? You're better at,
That's in the application.
in our application language?
Yep.
I'll kind of, again, thank you for bringing that up. We haven't done a conceptual in a while, and I can't remember how we handled that in the past.
Well, I think the type of, we haven't had conceptual, but we've done preliminary. And a preliminary, the abutters get notified.
Okay. What was the last time we did a preliminary or?
I believe we did a preliminary on the warehouse.
And when we did that, was there an abutter notice put out? Because we did that one
According
like,
to this, if that's what they
Yeah.
apply for.
we should have, right? Tim or Victoria, you got any input on this?
No, whatever it says.
You're going to defer to our language, right? Yeah, no, I am too. I'm not sure.
To D box on this one.
Yeah, because these plans weren't, these plans weren't sent out to us, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't get sent the plans.
This is on the checklist.
No, that's on the,
Are these plans, is this plan as is available anywhere? Is it like on our site or anything?
You don't have the staff report?
We do.
There are images, there's maps on there.
It says it right
Okay.
there, huh?
But I guess that's the question, right? If you read our application guidelines.
Cool.
And Lori just read it. It said that for a conceptual design review where abutters aren't noticed, it can only include approved plans as part of the display. Is that kind of the gist of what it said?
this is the application that was filled out. I don't know if you have it in your packet.
I don't have it.
This here. Was checked. This is different than a preliminary.
Is that really just discussing what gets put up on the board, so to speak?
So,
If you don't mind, I'm just going to ask, kind of get some internal determination on it.
But it wasn't in the packet.
Not in my packet.
It wasn't on what was emailed out.
But the application was sent out to us.
Okay.
And this is what was checked off in the application. And it says that you can only display previous planning board approved or recorded plan. No new plans can be displayed without abutter notification. No abutters were notified on this.
Yeah, no. Okay, so what we can do is I can pull up a map.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that, when you're trying to start to develop a project like this, you should come and introduce yourself to the board and let somebody know what you're planning to do and get some preliminary feedback. That's all I was looking for.
Yeah, I think we're just, procedurally looking to do it the right way.
Yep.
We're not trying to, I don't think we're looking to be difficult, but consideration of kind of what our bylaws and our rules and our,
Well, considering no abutters were notified,
yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's the sticking point.
Okay, that makes sense. This is a conceptual discussion only. There was no notification process for this application required. But, all right, so that came from staff, but what did you read? Can I see that?
Sure.
Yeah.
This is, Dee sent that out to us.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't dig into it. Okay. No new plans can be displayed at a meeting without a butter notification. So I guess the question is, do these constitute new plans? If it's got some lot lines shown and stuff, I think it does constitute. Maybe it's not a full plan we're set, but
Yeah, the plans that I apologize. My engineer who's going to do this is Phil Christensen, and lucky him, he's in France for 2 weeks, so he wasn't available tonight. But we through our conversations with Dee, we were informed to have minimal information on the plans that we
No,
submitted.
I mean, if
so
you
that
wanted to show
they
us,
wouldn't be.
if you wanted to show us a plan of like Haverhill Country Club, which I believe that property is the golf course.
It's
Or
the
if
golf
you
course
wanted-
and
if
the
you-
budding
Or if
property.
you wanted to show us a plan that we approved for Abbey Road and, I don't know, what's the other one called? Brady Circle or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
I wonder if would it be easiest to pull up the tax map and just sort of talk about what might happen within the tax map?
That's kind of what these are.
Yeah,
So
Tim's
tax
got
maps.
we submitted 4 plans to the board, and the request for just a discussion, preliminary discussion on the project.
I guess that's a sticking point, right? It says, new
Those are the
plans
ones
can't
that-
be proposed, but technically these aren't detailed plans, or
Oh, yes, definitely.
these are just conceptual. I don't know.
Well, why don't we put them up, and if you guys don't want to, if you feel like you can't discuss them, we won't discuss them.
If you wanna pull up, like from the assessors,
I can just get a parcel map.
right,
Sure, why don't we do that?
that's fine.
Let's
fine.
let's keep it moving forward, but yeah, also in consideration of kind of how our language is written. And
I don't think we got this staff report either, did
Vicky,
we?
these are
I don't
the
know.
ones that I submitted
I
to.
I don't remember
D?
being sent out the staff report.
No one got a staff report?
Did you? I don't think we got the staff report either. The only thing we got was the application.
Yeah, that's all it's here.
Unless I didn't get the email.
wait,
So it says we got an email on the 15th that said folders are ready, and at the bottom of that was the application.
so minutes, Garden Road, 49 Plastow Road. What's 49 Plastow Road?
49 Plastow Road? I don't know.
Oh, that's a bond release. It's convenient MD. Then ZBA. So yeah, I don't.
We didn't get a staff report.
Okay. That kind of, yeah, you're right.
We didn't get this plan. The only thing we got was on the 15th. when
That's
it
almost
said,
kind of what everything looks like that was in the packet, right? Really, same thing as this.
Can we get this on up there, Vicky?
Well, unfortunately, yeah, I think we're kind of missing some information here. And then the question is what
They
should
don't-
be here, what shouldn't, what's allowed, what isn't.
Tim has it.
From a conceptual standpoint, I think,
well, I mean, showing that is fine.
yeah.
My concern is the house lots.
Okay. Well, I think within this context, we can talk about essential conceptual discussion about it. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
So does everyone have these 5 in front of them?
We do now,
We
yes.
do now, but we didn't get emailed that information or the staff report.
All right.
So this is kind of like new to us. Usually we get this information the week prior.
Yeah.
Gets us some time to absorb it.
In front of me, there were two, she sent 2 emails out, right?
Yeah, she sent an email out Monday afternoon at 1:27,
Just page, just
15th, that had the
scroll up and down.
planning board agenda sidewalk, and then the planning board
And then
agenda,
Yes.
Oh, great.
which is the
Okay, great, thank you.
staff report.
Oh, you know what it is? It's buried in the, well, it's not buried, but it's added to the folders already email that came over late on Monday.
But the only attachment I have on that is the application. There's more?
You're right.
It shows the application, it shows the tax card, and it shows
The applicant information,
a
right?
picture of, I believe, is going in from Forest Street.
Oh, a fence and some grass.
I think that's Forest Street, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so none of this came over. Okay.
All right, let's see what we got here.
All right, so we'll see if we can address that and make sure that the appropriate documentation or lack of, or that we handle the appropriate documentation piece. But we're kind of shooting from the hip on this. But all right, go ahead if you want to go ahead and introduce what you're looking to do and.
So in orange on the plan, you see that's the parcel that the country club owns. And
Al,
that's the parcel that,
will you speak to the microphone,
oh,
please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That's the parcel that the country club owns. And that's the parcel that I have under agreement and that I am interested in developing.
Which,
Hold on,
oh, okay.
he sent me here with a pointer. So this orange is the part that I have under agreement. I also own Lot 8 on Abbey Road right here. I also own Lot 11 on Abbey Road. But the
Where's lot 11?
Lot 11 is on the cul-de-sac right there on Abbey Road. And I've also expanded in conversations with the country club to purchase 2 building lots here that are going to be incorporated into the proposed plan when it's ready. So
I'm
What-
sorry, could you show that again?
so that let me see if I can find a map of the total country club. So this is the whole country club property. And the orange is the part that I have under agreement, but you'll see there's a discrepancy right here where on the orange, it doesn't include this parcel right here. I'm shaky on my pointer. It doesn't include that parcel right there. So
So those wouldn't be a part of the PRD though, right?
those are gonna end up being
Separate house lots?
separate house lots in conforming with the zoning, current zoning.
Because that's all the LDR?
It's not, one of them is, Let me see if it's on the plan that I can show to you here.
Abbey Road is the North Ave development that
Right. That's
we,
a new development.
not too long
It
ago.
must all be LDR, that far out.
What's that?
It must all be LDR
Yeah,
that
that's
far
what I
out.
think too. Yeah,
So this is what I'm talking about.
yeah.
So the lot 2 would be, the frontage would be created by the new subdivision, and lot 1 would just be created by submittal.
That's what, Abbey Road?
No,
No,
that's,
this is off of Forest
it's
Street.
Forest Street
Oh, okay.
at the top.
Oh, that
And to the left is Autumn Circle.
Yep.
that lot 1 is that's not in your conceptual, or it is?
Well, it's in the one that's on the screen, but it's not in this one.
Should it be?
It's going to be, yes. It's going to be part of my submission. So this is Abbey down here.
Was there an intention to acquire these lots other than to put houses on them?
When I purchased both Lot 8 and Lot 11 on Abbey, I did so because they both had frontage on the country club land. I was hoping to maybe in the future come to an agreement with the Hero Country Club. So what I'm proposing to do, well, what we're talking about maybe doing, I guess, in this conceptual discussion tonight is coming in through Lot 8 and going out onto Autumn.
There's a condition on Lot 8.
Lot 8
Oh,
Abbey.
yeah.
There's condition on, I believe it's 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Oh, is that where there was wetlands? So we said,
Yep,
no structures, no roads,
you can't cross over it.
can't cross over it. Yeah, I think I remember that.
That you could only put a wellhead on the back of it.
See, that's why I wanted to come, just in case somebody said something like that before I got too far down the road.
That's because we approved.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
We, when I first, it was called Brady Estates, and then it was called Brighton Drive, but we approved that.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I wasn't involved in that, so that's why I'm
we
here.
specifically put those conditions on.
Yeah, we did a sidewalk there, and there was some wetlands, and so where they were more prevalent.
Actually, out in that area,
Yeah.
I believe is going to be designated one of the prime wetlands.
Could be,
Isn't that like number 4
um,
out in that area?
there's prime wetlands designated in that area. I don't know if it's number 4 or whatever.
Well, 4 I think is on Brady, not on Abbey. It's on the other cul-de-sac that's not on the plan. The reason that I did this for Lot 8 and 11, because this would be the least encompassing, because the wetlands are cutting across here. I did have a talk about with my engineer about entering off Lot 11 and coming up and crossing the easement and then going out here, but there's significantly more wetlands here at the end of 11 than there is on 8, crossing 8. So you can see the green part right there, the yellow area, that's a small amount of wetlands there. The wetlands are more on 7 and 6 and 5. So this was, seemed like it was less infrastructure and less wetlands.
Anybody,
Trying to take the path of least resistance.
But nevertheless, we do have that condition on there.
does anybody know what the wetland situation is for where these lots are proposed?
I haven't had them flagged yet. We've got topographical and some information, but they haven't been flagged. But it looks okay. It doesn't really. It's
There were, that's why, because it's so close to some other areas that were pretty wet. I was just wondering if it carried over to that section.
I walked it a few times, and it gets pretty dry up here. This is mostly uplands. That's why that road is there.
If you'd like, I could display the National Wetlands Inventory on the Granite view. But it mostly seems within the parcels on Abbey. and Brady.
Okay. Thank you. So you're saying where these would, where you see this proposed conceptual plan, you're not seeing it?
According to the National Wetlands Inventory.
Okay.
I'm not sure when this
But
data
on our
was updated.
assessors, there's also the prime wetlands that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's where we'd want to dig in more closely. It's good to know what it is on the national versus, but then ultimately it's going to come down to what's on our assessor's records, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So what do you want to speak to? I guess we might have to have some discussions about how you get there, but let's talk about what you're looking to do if you can get there.
Well, this is the, planned residential development is what I'd be applying for, and it would be, the remainder of this green space is all part of the 70 or so acres that I'm trying to purchase from the country club, and this would be designated to open space. It looks like it's about 41 acres that would be designated to the open space.
So there would be no plans to develop that at any time.
No, not once it's designated. You can't, right?
Yeah. And then, all right. So within that, how many lots? Tell us about the size of the lots.
So the lots are about 100. These lots are showing, and again, it's just preliminary, but
Sure.
these lots are showing about 150 feet of frontage and about an acre and a half of land each.
And structurally, what are you kind of looking to build?
Potentially probably 2,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage. Seems to be the sweet spot.
So no affordable housing, which is the big thing right now, right, in New Hampshire? Affordable housing?
Well, if you're from Massachusetts, it might be, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
I would check on the open space because there's only a certain percentage of the open space that can be wetlands. I'm not sure what that is, maybe 15%, maybe, I'm not sure.
50% required open space, wetlands, and slopes over 15% can only account for 30%.
30%.
Of that 50% requirement.
I think that Mr. Christensen has done that calculation and it works.
Yeah.
And it's mostly wet just down here, like I said.
Right. Yeah, and that's where we had problems with, 8 and 11, but, so not to cross the wetlands there. But I mean, it's kind of a new ballgame when you own more land, although it's going to be designated open space, so we kind of in the same situation. But
What is the intention for, what is this, up on the top left, what's that oval-looking roadway in development there? What's that called again?
That's Autumn Circle.
Autumn Circle.
Circle. And there's a parcel that you would look to acquire that abuts that with some frontage on Autumn Circle. What is the intention to try to get a road in through there as well?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll have a entrance through Autumn and an entrance through Abbey to the new project. I didn't want to come and ask for a waiver because to get the amount of lots I would have to extend. I think it's 800 feet, right, for the cul-de-sac.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think it's 800, and I would be coming here asking for a waiver if I didn't have the entrance on both ends.
Is there any reason why you wouldn't look to come just off of 4th Street versus sort of cutting through neighborhoods that are already established?
Infrastructure. That's the whole thing, is trying to minimize infrastructure.
As far as what?
It'd be a long road with with,
Well, it looks like it's a pretty long road anyways.
I know, and I'm trying not to make it longer.
Is,
Because, you know, we don't have any abutters here, but once the abutters know,
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be submitting an application that's going to be in compliance.
I think that people would be happier to come in through Forest Street than to have increased traffic in these two neighborhoods now that only have basically one way in. I think all these neighbors are going to be up in arms,
That may be.
especially Autumn Circle. It's been a long time since I've been down there, but that's kind of a narrow road.
It's been newly paved. It's in,
I haven't been down there in a
it's in
long
good
time,
condition. It's
but-
not, no, it's,
It's been newly paved in
Has
the
it?
last couple of years, and
And
it's
it's-
wider than what it used to be.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, it's in really good
'Cause
shape.
the last time I was down it was kind of like
Oh, it's real good
a
shape.
small
It's been,
road.
looks like it's a little bit wider than what it was. They made it, so,
Okay.
if a fire truck goes down the road, if the car's on the side, you got plenty of room and whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked like the infrastructure on Autumn could definitely accommodate what we're talking about here. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that, some people aren't going to be happy, but I don't know if there's a whole lot we can do about that.
Come in through Forest Street.
Yeah, I mean-
That's the preferred. I can hear it now.
I would tend to agree with that, especially,
And not to mention Abbey Road, and how much are those houses going for? 1.2?
Abby, they're under $1 million.
no, I
Close to
think
it.
they're all listed over $1 million.
Close to it. I don't think they're gonna be too happy with a road either. The preferred would be coming in off of Forest Street,
And not going into Abbey?
right?
May not be an option anyways, though, with the because of our restrictions there anyways.
Well, coming in off of Forest up here and not going into Lot 8 brings me down and around into Lot 11, where I don't think there's a restriction unless you guys tell me there is.
Well, if there's wetlands in that open space,
Yeah, it will require wetlands crossing for sure.
I think that there would be some concerns about that. We worked to Abbey Road. We worked closely with the Conservation Commission to minimize, and we had them redo some things. I think we limited it to like one where if we avoided the wetland crossing, it would have been sort of had a different impact to the wetlands. So.
Would,
So
am I wrong in saying that the board would be more interested in a plan that required a waiver for a cul-de-sac? If we came in off of Forest and didn't go to Abbey, didn't go to Lot 11 or Lot 8, just kept close to this current trajectory with a cul-de-sac, so we could come off of Forest and come down roughly where we are and put a cul-de-sac here, but that would be a roughly, I'm guessing at 1,800 feet, maybe 1,600 feet. That might make everybody happy.
yeah, what's the board's thoughts on that?
And not connect to Autumn Circle either?
That would not require to connect to Autumn Circle.
I would think that would be the preferred, and leave those neighborhoods alone. But that's just me, and I'm not bound by anything
I
tonight.
understand, we're just
It's
discussing.
conceptual.
I know. Just trying to, just talking.
But there's definitely a condition on Lot 8 on Abbey Road.
Yeah, so that's something you,
So I don't know.
Something that will
I don't know why,
definitely-
I don't know why no one brought that up to you before you came tonight, that you didn't know that.
Well, that's why I can.
Yeah.
it's something that definitely comes into play. That's something that isn't up for debate. It is what it is. So I think
Well,
it would behoove you to research that,
Yeah, I'm
understand
going
what
to
it means.
research that. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that lives in a community right now, especially if they understand that there's some buildable property on the other side of them, nobody wants to see the trees cut down and houses built. But I think you have an understanding that it's a possibility. That being said, if you invite, what is that, 15, 20 lots in there, the traffic
That's,
that
this is deceiving because it's a 200 scale, so those lots are huge.
No, I get it. I'm just saying if it's, what is it, 17, 18, 20 lots, somewhere in there?
17.
Okay. So, I mean, you've got, multiple cars, you've got services. Suddenly that's coming through these communities that they weren't anticipating. I get it. I live in a cul-de-sac. I don't necessarily want to see it get cut through. And
So, what would work from a development side would be an extended cul-de-sac. And I think that as long as I could get the number of units, I think the way your zoning reads is as long as I can get the number of units without the PRD, that I could go to 2 families. So I could shorten the cul-de-sac, come in off of Forest, and probably end up with pretty close to the same number of residential units if they were duplex lots.
that's a completely different
Yeah, it is.
conversation, right? So versus single-family homes in the LRD,
Can do the same LRD, come in off of Forest with a cul-de-sac. I think it would require Phil to submit to you a plan of how many house lots that I could get without the PRD, and then I can't exceed the same number of units on the duplex lot. So if I could come here with a plan and utilize the whole parcel that I'm buying, the whole 77 acres, I could probably put a plan together that had, 25 lots on it or something, and then I could have 12 or 15 two-family lots, and then I'd end up at the same number. That would be a shorter cul-de-sac. It'd be off of Forest. It wouldn't involve Autumn or Abbey.
is that because of the requirements to have a cul-de-sac? Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
Tim would probably.
Yeah, Tim? Victoria?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact.
Is there, because I haven't been involved in any
thought-
plans that required,
I thought I remember Phil Christensen telling me it was 800.
to have a cul-de-sac?
800 feet is the maximum roadway width with a cul-de-sac in Plaistow, I thought. Don't,
There's some number like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can only be so long?
right.
Yeah, that's
And from what I understand, there's already like 11 waivers that have been granted for cul-de-sac length in the town of Groveland over the last number of years. It's been waived fairly often.
Groveland?
There's a precedent for
You mean Plastow?
Plaistow, I mean, yeah, sorry.
I did pull it up. So dead end streets, the minimum length without cul-de-sacs, 200 feet. Maximum length with cul-de-sac is 2,000.
It's 2,000?
Maximum length to allow having
Wow.
a cul-de-sac.
That might solve that problem right there. I don't know, I was sure that Phil had told me 800.
Yeah.
But my memory chip's full in my old age, so
It's tough.
too
This
many
is
numbers.
on our subdivision regulations, and it is different depending on if you're on a major street, secondary, residential, minor street. But residential,
Does that change
Yeah.
with the planned residential development?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, the PID requirements are a little different. But, I mean, I think in terms of public safety, although, you know, everyone likes to live at the end of the cul-de-sac because there's no traffic. But it creates problems for snow plowing. I mean, there's
Fire
long roads
safety?
that you gotta go up and back. It creates public safety problems. So somewhere in our subdivision or zoning, it states that if it's possible, the preference is to connect to existing roads. So that you start to build up a grid of
Network.
network. So it doesn't put all the traffic on any one road. You have opportunities, you know. If a tree falls down in the middle of one road, you can get around that by going on the, you know, another set of roads. So something to consider. Then in regards to the Abbey Lane lots, I think most of those, they had a small, well, reasonably small. I mean, the lots are
110,000 plus.
huge. But there was a small amount of uplands that you could connect to Abbey Road. Behind that was extensive wetlands, for which we said only a well could go beyond. But that wasn't taking into, and beyond that, I think there was uplands. But when you purchase the land behind that, then now you're connecting those uplands with other areas that you could connect into. Still can't cross the wetlands. I mean, there was no reason to not uphold that, but it doesn't mean that development has to end at those wetlands if you own, you know, the back property.
Just a matter of how to get to them
So it's
appropriately,
better how to
right?
get to them. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some things to consider, right? Number one, understanding what conditions are on Abbey Road. Number two, considering what your options are to get into this development appropriately and what that might mean. And, you know, as a resident who lives in a community that could potentially connect to another community, you know, it's something that nobody wants to see because they don't want increased traffic. And like I say that as a resident, not as a planning board member with, as Laurie mentioned, anything we say today doesn't have any impact on how we might
I
rule
know.
the application. So if there's a good alternative to get into your community, I think it would be worthwhile to consider that. I think it's a good point that Tim and Victoria both talked about the open space and the percentage of wetlands that could be considered within the open space. Sounds like you shifted from these lots with 2,500 square foot homes to then potentially having duplexes. I don't know what all the ramifications of that would be within
I'm not sure either.
the zoning and the PRD designation and all that other stuff.
I'm trying to do something that works.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board or discussion we want to hear about, or? Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, right? With these neighborhoods, how you get in there, what are you going to put in there? I mean, we would then get into what's preferable for lighting, what's preferable for road. We'd have to deal with every condition regarding wetlands, and there's a large focus on wetlands, more so now than ever. So
coming through forest would be the minimal interaction with wetlands that we could do.
It's the way it looks.
Huh?
I think it looks that way.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't, so I learned a couple of things. That's good. That's why I came. And I think if that cul-de-sac is 2,000 feet, and I can make that work, even if I needed a small waiver, it sounds like that might be something that the board would consider.
Yeah, I think we want to consider our butters, right? If this does come to an application and involved, completely changing the dynamic of their neighborhood by allowing a cut through or an extension of their roadway, there might be concerns. But if you eliminated that from the start,
Less headaches.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
and if it required the board's amenable to waivers where it makes sense. But so minimal impact to existing residents if possible. Minimal impact to wetlands, little to no impact to wetlands if possible. I think those are the two things we put out. Any other?
That's a tall order these days.
It is. and I'm not saying that we say, oh, it's got a puddle
definitely
there,
would
don't
be.
touch it. But
Yeah.
if we can find it, with Abbey Road, we had some wetlands to contend with, and we were creative and we worked with the developer and we made it happen. So, anything else, Tim, that you can think of? Richard, Lori, Chuck,
No.
Bill, Victoria, Charlene?
I think if the staff agrees, you might try design review next, where you lay out the subdivision and the housing, and we just focus on that design.
Is that public hearing?
That's a public hearing, which requires, butter notification. But it would save you the expense of doing an extensive, if you come in with the subdivision application, you gotta lay out the road and, a lot more details in
Right.
full application. But the design review, you could focus on one aspect of it, like the layout of the streets and where the housing is concerned. You still have to do another, full application, but you get, I think, the answers to a lot of questions sooner.
Yeah, maybe I'll try that. I'm thinking in my mind, what Larry said about the affordable housing, the duplex, the two-family housing units would be more affordable than the 3,000 or 4,000 square foot
Well, I know
mansions.
that's the big thing New Hampshire is pushing for right now, is affordable housing.
Well, I mean, it's not really, there's still gonna be $600,000.
I
It's
know.
not really affordable, but it's less than the 9
Right.
or 1.1 for the
Right.
monsters on Abbey, right?
Are you a developer yourself?
Yes.
Do you have other projects that you've done recently, or?
Yeah, I've just come off a couple projects I've built in Groveland. I built a 9 in Groveland and an 8 in Groveland. Short streets, 800 streets. It's my wife and I, just a small developer, like 8 or 9. Or this would be a big project for me.
Okay.
Usually 8, 9, 10 lot subdivisions. Just did 4 in Georgetown. Prior to that, I was doing a lot of work I built a house for a customer a long time ago in Reading, and I got stuck there for 10 or 12 years because you talk to people, you know people, and I
There you
ended up
go.
doing a lot of stuff there for quite a while. And my kids moved back here, so I moved back here.
Okay.
But yeah, so I just find it's easier to work with than work against. So that's why I wanted to come for the preliminary and just do as much talking as we could. And I think we made a lot of inroads tonight. I think I'm going to work when if I can get Phil home from France, I'm going to start looking at that coming in off of Forest and
Okay.
trying to work on the number of lots. I mean, it's all, you guys know, I do this to try and make money. So I want to get the certain number of units, and I think I can probably do that with the 2 families.
Yeah, and we heard the Abbey Road application. I would say read into that, look into the public minutes and whatnot. And you can see because that wasn't a PRD, right? It's just
No.
LDR.
Oh, that's, it has, yeah, they're all,
Yeah. The only PRD we've done is the one off of Sweet Hill, right? I mean, you can look into what we did for Brady and see the restrictions on lot 8.
Yeah.
And anything else that might apply. You can see what we may have done, what we focused on for them, which was wetlands, a few other things. And then you could potentially look at the PRD that just got approved for Sweet Hill and see what we focused on there. A little different project, but it's the most recent PRD that we approved. So might get some ideas
am I
about.
barking up the right tree with the PRD? Is that something that, I assume you guys are interested, trying to get some open space? Does it matter?
New Hampshire needs housing.
Excuse me?
New Hampshire just needs housing.
It needs housing?
Yes. And definitely the duplexes, according to survey results, would be more digestible because they'll be cheaper.
Yeah. That's what I think too.
Except, but then you get the NIMBY factor, right? Yeah, over there, do it, not there where I live.
I never heard that before
there.
in 35 years in this business. What's a NIMBY?
Do you know what it is?
Are you crazy?
Have you heard of banana?
If I had a nickel for every time I heard I used to play in that field, I'd have a lot of nickels.
You
Have you
can.
heard of banana?
No.
Build absolutely nothing anywhere.
Anytime.
Ever again.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like this, where I've had some add-ons. I had one customer who, they were both foreigners and they both became American citizens, and they saved for 15 years to buy a house for me, and it was their dream. And then there was an extension to their road that I was involved in, and she was yelling at me, "I don't want more." I'm like, you just got the American dream, and you're telling me you don't want anyone else to have that?
Have you done any more duplex
Crazy.
projects?
I've done a couple, yeah. I've done a handful of duplex projects, yeah. I have a couple nice plans and designs. It's, my wife and I, she loves to design stuff, so we like to make them look like they're not duplexes.
Yeah. Have you found greater success selling duplex over single quickly?
Well, like I said, I was working in Reading for a while, and everything I touched was sold before I put a foundation in the ground.
Yeah.
But I did like maybe 6 duplexes in Reading that, everything sold like hotcakes. So we've just been, the last decade, we've just been lucky.
Yeah.
It's gonna go south soon. So
Look at water. I'm not sure what our water situation is out there.
on Forest. Is there water on Forest?
No.
It's
None
not,
of our
right?
town water can get to them, right?
It's well and septic. That's what,
Yeah,
that's what I
okay.
was figuring.
No, it would be.
Yeah.
And I have counted, Tim probably knows about this. I have talked to both gas companies, and I guess there's a 6-month rule where if you're within 100 feet of them, they have to give you permission. And we've already talked to both of them. And they said, yeah, we know we have 6 months, but just give us the plan and we'll get it done right away. Because I thought that might be a holdup, but it looks like that will be okay too.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of that, the people who are on Abbey Road, if they buy $1 million homes and then they see duplexes in their backyard, they may not like it.
These duplexes would be pretty much not able to be seen by anybody if we came in off of Forest. I mean, maybe a couple houses on Autumn might see a little bit, but there'd be on the
buffer
other
there.
side of that gas easement. You really wouldn't
Okay.
see them. And like I said to Victoria, if I build a duplex, it's going to look nice. So I don't think they'll mind seeing it.
All right. Anything
Not
else?
too nice, so maybe I want one. That was
Well,
a joke.
You're more than welcome.
He's accepting deposits right now.
I'm
Yeah.
currently accepting applications. All right. Well, listen, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming in.
Yep. I'll be back.
Good night. All right. So that brings us to old business. This is probably a good spot to accept the minutes, the sealed minutes. So Charlene wants to quickly pass those out.
Yeah, just maybe Bill can help me out with this. My understanding from this is that it should go to the people who voted only.
Yes.
That also means Tim, because he voted and Richard didn't.
Well, it
so-
would be anybody who was sat in. If you sat in here, you'd be okay because you know what's in the minutes.
Well,
Whoever was in the meeting, you're saying? So
Or
Richard,
even all board members can, even you might just have to abstain if you weren't here to vote.
everybody was here, but
Everybody
Richard
was
Tim was a voting member that evening, whereas currently Richard has been assigned a voting
Right,
member
but
this
Richard
evening.
was here, correct?
yes, he was.
Yes,
So he can see him.
yes,
He can
That's
see
what-
him.
yes.
He'll
That's what I
vote
wanted
to
to know.
accept, he'll vote to accept the
He
minutes,
can,
even though he was an alternate that evening.
correct.
Okay, so I will distribute these and I'm going to pick them up again at the end of it
Yes.
because they are going to only exist in one paper copy with Beth.
Right.
If you want to have discussion on this, then you've got to go into
Non-public.
non-public session again.
Okay.
And these are very minimal. There's, the discussion isn't here. It's just said, we talked about this, we talked about that.
Yep.
Just a question, just informational wise, apart from, people that were here that see them, what happens to the sealed minutes once they leave here? Who has access to them?
She's going to give them to Beth, she said.
Yep. So it's really just us.
Does
Yeah.
Beth hold them but doesn't look at them?
And she's the admin to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. So nobody else who wasn't at the meeting
Right.
has
That's
any,
why- That's why they're sealed. That's why you, if they're unsealed, then everyone has access.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that, someone else like in town hall, can they go and like, oh, look, there's sealed minutes. Let me take a look.
No,
All right.
no,
not legally.
There's not just
no, they're not gonna sit out on like a desk somewhere.
they're not in the general purpose
No.
file cabinet where someone's like, oh, wait, there's sealed minutes here. Okay.
I would just say, just look at the accuracy of these minutes. Again, if there's any discussion, we'd have to go into non-public again. All we're going to do is vote to accept or not accept the minutes, and then we're going to hand these back to Charlene.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the non-public
I'll second.
minutes and to keep, not done.
Who was the second?
From May 3rd and to keep them sealed as well.
I'll second.
You got that, Charlene?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0-0. Okay, and with that, we will.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. No.
Take a picture, put it on microfiche, leave it underneath the public bench. Okay. We do have a bond release for 49 Plaistow Road, Convenient MD. Let's power through that. How's everybody feel about just kind of on a side note, the traffic patterns there? I think I haven't heard of any accidents there since that got installed, right?
I haven't heard of any
I-
accidents.
And when I've driven by there, I don't really see any issues
Yeah.
with parking in there or anything.
I'd say that for one, I think Convenient MD is a good addition to town. But number two, I think that while we did that plan and we got that corrected, I think that's been a positive sign. Unfortunately, we did also make a recommendation in NHDOT to put a no U-turn sign just north of that intersection at the Rite Aid, and they haven't done anything to that, to my knowledge. And I saw someone pull a U-turn the other day and almost get creamed
Yeah, I've seen
because
that
people
too.
fly over the hill,
Yeah.
Yep.
and
It's like a
someone's
blind
doing a
spot.
U-turn into traffic. My daughter got hit there. She was coming south, and a guy did a U-turn and hit her.
Well, you can see it. You're coming there because you have speed going, and when you do a U-turn, you're going very slow.
Luckily, it was a slow. She had just started going because the traffic had just released,
Yeah.
and this kid cut across into traffic. Luckily, it wasn't a moving situation. It was like he just kind of hit the back quarter panel. But
Add a little snow there, and you get the slow
yeah,
pileup that happens over the hill.
Tim, we never heard back from them, right? You wrote that recommendation, right?
Not that I heard. We recommended no U-turn there, or at least as you're coming up over the railroad bridge, something that says steep slope, or, sometimes you'll see red light ahead, something to give them warning that there's a little, something to be aware of once you crest
True.
the hill here. But nothing.
Yeah, it should say, we assume you're doing 55, so slow down because there could be a red light ahead.
55 slow.
Well, especially trucks,
True. They can just say, hey, we're NHDOT. Thank you for the recommendation. If we can.
Yeah, well, they have all kinds of what they call warrants, which is a certain level of something, the level of traffic, level of accidents, level of this, that, and the other thing. And unless the condition you're describing exceeds those warrants, they don't.
Okay.
They don't do anything. It'd have to be really some special occasion.
I get you. Okay. With that in mind, any questions about Convenient MD and the bond release? Someone want to read the motion?
Yeah, I moved that the bond being held for the amended site plan at 49 Plastow Road, Convenient MD, as well as any accrued interest be released and returned to Covas Properties LLC in the account closed.
Bill makes a motion.
I second it.
Richard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 5-0-0. Boom. I chatted with Jen just to get an update, just to make sure we're still plowing forward, right, on our stuff. And she certainly, unexpectedly hasn't been able to attend our last couple meetings. So, but the discussion was generally just about what we're looking to do, right? We want to close the loop on the economic development plan. And I think the goals are to have a clear path to updating the master plan with some of that information, number one. And then number two, have a clear set of goals coming out of that whole exercise. And part of that may be, number one is the master plan piece, but number two is the potential for rewriting some zoning amendments, for proposal in the next election. So it may include language around allowable uses, and she said sometimes the more information you have, the better, especially as we set what these uses look like and if there's variance requests, if we have good language there, it helps guide the variance process as well. So that was the gist of our conversation, and I think that's the plan for the next meeting. If you have anything else to add, Victoria, please jump in.
June work session, we are doing the economic development survey results. And we're gonna go over the RHNA,
That is the,
Regional Housing Needs Assessment.
oh, yeah, yep.
And then I'm also going to talk about your HOP grant and what has been going on
Beautiful.
late.
And then MS4, I'm not gonna lie, like that's like saying, hey, we're gonna talk, we're gonna speak Russian today, right? So, and I don't speak Russian, so I think you and Tim are gonna be our best resources for that. So please, anything you want to do with that to get us up to speed and in compliance, have at it.
Yeah, as I believe we were in agreement, Tim, a lot of the information is correct. It just, not all of it belongs within the zoning ordinance. It needs to get shuffled and organized a little bit better. So it shouldn't be too much of a push.
Yeah, and thanks, Tim, for all the work you've done on that over the years, because it sounds like we're pretty organized compared to other people, and just a few corrections and adjustments, and we'll be clean. So great. All right. Anything else? Any questions? Any comments? Do we know if we have any applications teed up for June?
I haven't heard of anything.
And then we typically, what do we do for July?
Well, we don't meet on July 4th. I can state that with certainty.
Is that the Wednesday?
I think we usually take that first week in July.
Yeah. Does July 4th actually fall on the Wednesday this year?
I don't know.
I think it's like a Tuesday.
Okay. So, yeah, I figure we'll throw it out there now to get, it's the 5th is a Wednesday, right? So, yeah.
One thing to be aware of, the concerts are back on the town green this year on Wednesday nights, just so we're aware of that.
We can't get some cones put out there for esteemed elected members of the local government to get spots?
There has to be some perks of some kind.
Yeah.
No.
As long as they don't play country out there during the meetings, the music is fine to me, even if it's,
Well, you may have country, I don't know. It could depend on the night.
who listens to
I don't know what we're gonna
country?
meet.
Who listens to country?
What time do
There
they
really
start
hasn't
at
been.
6?
Yes.
Yeah.
When they first started and we didn't have air conditioning, we had to have the windows open.
Oh, geez.
That
Oh, I
was
can remember meetings like
it was
that. You'd have
sometime-
it and is.
sometimes painful, but now with the windows closed, I mean, you can certainly hear that they're there, but it's not.
Yeah.
The big thing is with the parking.
All right. So today is May 17th. This is another month with 3 Wednesdays in it, right? So we won't meet 2 weeks from now. We'll meet 3 weeks from now, correct?
Yeah.
June 7th and then the 21st.
Yeah.
I might miss a meeting. We'll see.
Which one?
I'm going away June 22nd. I might be in New York the week of the 7th, 5th, the 7th. I have to look at that. And then we know that so what do we do? Seeing as July 5th is typically an application, that first week of July is an application meeting. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a workshop.
I'm sorry, I got that wrong. So so we simply won't do it. All right.
So July 5th meeting?
Yes. All right. Anything else?
There's a letter that we
Thank you.
have apparently.
We did have a late add to this letter. I would, we just got this evening right before the meeting. It looks like let's just say we've all got a copy of the letter. Please read it. Sounds like there'll be some discussion on the code enforcement side. It doesn't help us to have any public discussion about the specific property or the specific situation because there's no application or public hearing before us. But since the planning board was referenced, or myself, that I think it's appropriate for us to have a copy of it and understand, so.
And code enforcement should probably take a look.
Yes, it sounds like that's going to be the proper course for this. Okay. So, anything else? All right, with that, we will close the meeting at 9:06 PM. Thank you.